All right, let's get started. So thank you everyone for joining us for today's virtual Lunch and Learn Year-End Made Easy, how fractional accounting services help you cross the finish line. I am Sarah. I am playing the role of the producer. I'll be in the background monitoring for your questions as we go through the session today. So before we jump into the good stuff, let me just run through a few housekeeping items. We anticipate this will be a 30-minute session, maybe a little longer depending on how many questions you all have as we go through the content. We will have a formal audience Q&A at the end of the presentation, but we do want this to be an engaging session. So at any point, if you have questions, go ahead and drop them into the question box. I'll be monitoring for them and we'll interject as we go when appropriate. And then this session is being recorded, so we will be sending a copy of the deck as well as the recording to you via email. You'll likely see that in your inbox tomorrow morning. And as I mentioned, this is a virtual Lunch and Learn. And so for all attendees, we want to provide a $25 gift card to a meal delivery service of your choice. So let me launch that poll to give you the opportunity to select that. So I'll leave this open for a couple of seconds so that you have the opportunity to select your gift card that you can use for a future lunch. And the options are Grubhub, Uber Eats, DoorDash, or you can also donate your lunch to No Kid Hungry, which is a nonprofit that their mission is to ensure that no child goes hungry. Okay, thank you. Let me close this and we can move right along. So let's just take a look at the agenda for today and what we're going to be covering. So we're going to start with what are fractional accounting services, who they're a good fit for, when they're the right fit. We're going to talk about a few success stories, a few use cases within different industries, and then key signs that you should consider, or key signs when you should consider fractional services. And then again, we will move into that more formal audience Q&A and then discuss next steps. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Frank, to introduce himself.
All right. Well, hello, everyone, and thanks for joining. My name is Frank Cuccia. I'm an account executive here at BrainSell. My background is in accounting and ERP solutions, and I specialize in helping companies find the right tools and align with their strategies to solve their business challenges and ultimately drive meaningful results. And today we've got Christy and Rachel here, and I'll pass it off to Christy.
Sure. Hi, my name's Christy Cheragino. I've been in the fractional consulting world for about 3 years now. Prior to that, had worked as a controller for companies from 10 million to 500 million in revenue. And so excited to be here today and talk about what fractional accounting looks like.
And I am Rachel Durkett. I have worked in the fractional industry for almost 7 years now, so I'm very familiar with all of the challenges that comes with the internal accounting finance and what we can do as the team to help support. So I'm excited to get more into the details.
Awesome. And we'll just talk a little bit about BrainSell. So for those of you who don't know us, we're a growth enablement company, and our mission is pretty straightforward. We help our customers grow and scale. So over the past 30 years, we've developed a unique approach to driving real measurable outcomes. And we do that by aligning people, process, technology, and data. We focus on 3 main areas, so software, consulting, and then fractional services. And these allow us to support your business across every stage in your growth journey. So today we'll be spotlighting one of our most flexible offerings, fractional accounting. So whether you need fractional CFO, bookkeeping support, or help navigating through a major transition, we'll help you bridge those gaps. Yeah, so that's us.
All right, so before we get into the main presentation, we have a couple of poll questions which will help us tailor the discussion. So the first question we have is, how would you describe your current accounting team capacity? Would you consider yourselves fully staffed and operating smoothly? Maybe you're understaffed, but you're managing. Or facing significant bandwidth challenges, or you don't have an in-house accounting team currently. So we'll keep this open for a couple of seconds. Okay, and let me share the results. Okay, it looks like we've got some good, well-staffed accounting teams, which is great. And then our second poll is, what's your biggest year-end challenge? So is it managing day-to-day accounting tasks? Let me just go ahead and launch that. Preparing for audits or cleaning up the books, budgeting or forecasting for 2025, or maybe it's something else. Give you a couple of seconds to collect the responses. Okay, and let's go ahead and share. So it looks like we have 50% are focused on preparing for audits or cleaning up the books, and 50% on budgeting or forecasting for 2025. So does that sound familiar, Christy and Rachel?
100%, especially at this time of year. So.
Great.
All right.
Okay. I can jump in here to kind of kick it off in terms of what are fractional services. I'm sure some people are somewhat familiar with it. I don't know if people in the audience today have used it, just heard about it, or have no clue what it is. So we'll kind of go over an overview first. But essentially where we can come in to help out is we'll provide our internal consultants to help support our clients either on a part-time basis, project basis, or sort of as needed. So it's super flexible. It's all hourly. So some people use us to backfill an internal position. Maybe somebody left, or they have somebody on maternity leave, or they just really need a little bit of extra bandwidth support for their existing team. And just need a couple extra hours here and there, and we'll help out more of an ongoing basis, or sometimes it's more a specific project. Maybe you're going through an audit or an M&A transaction, or you're looking to raise some capital, or going through an ERP implementation where it's it's a lot more specific in those cases. So we get brought in in a lot of different varieties, but you can flex hours up and down as needed. Sometimes it's a set amount of hours per week that we're working with clients, but oftentimes it's, kind of fluctuating on a weekly basis. Sometimes you need us really heavy as we're going through specific projects, but then once that wraps up, hours might, get to, scale back down to a minimum. It's pretty cost effective. So, you're only paying for hours that you do use us for. So if there's particular periods where you need to pause work, you don't really need us as much, or stop work in certain instances, you're only getting invoiced for the hours that you do use us for. And since we are hourly, we have to earn every hour that we do invoice for. So it's pretty flexible there. The expertise, we have over 400 consultants that we're able to pull from. So we're pretty specific in terms of making sure that we find the right resource with the background that you're needing, whether it's a specific ERP system that you want them to have experience with, you want them to have their CPA, You want them to have a certain amount of years in a specific industry or something like that, where it's a very niche expertise. We're able to pull from all of those resources to make sure you're getting the best possible resource for the projects that you're focusing on. So that's kind of the overview on what we do and what fractional services are and where we can kind of jump in and support. But I'm going to have Christy go a little more in depth.
Yeah, thank you. We see a lot of kind of potential instances where fractional services make sense. We do have clients that are startups and small businesses, and they may not need even one full-time accounting person early on. They may just need someone to keep on top of the record keeping, to help put a system in place that's going to be efficient for when they are ready to start hiring as they're growing. As examples, we have clients that we work a couple hours a month on, just keep their books up to date, and they ask us questions as needed, strategy questions. And then we have other larger clients. Growing companies are a great example, where maybe they're not sure who they need to hire at this point, and we've helped advise on what a team should look like. We can come in and kind of provide that extra bandwidth where maybe there's not quite a full-time position yet, or they're not sure there is one. We've worked with clients where we filled that position for a little bit while they were looking, so they didn't feel like they needed to make a quick decision around hiring on their team, because obviously quick and poor decisions can have a more negative impact to your accounting function than just taking the time and making sure you get the right hire. So and so that may be companies also that are going through a transition, such as M&A, restructuring. We've had people that, for example, had their entire department quit within a month span, and we were able to come in and keep the company functioning and running while they took time to make sure they made good hiring. On the M&A side, we've worked with clients that are leading up to a sale. A lot of times, you may have a team that, they're trying to keep on top of their day-to-day work. And, when you're going through due diligence and you're prepping for a sale, there's just so much extra work to do. It's like an audit times 10. And then on the back end of it too, there's always still work to do after. The sale doesn't happen and there's work to be, it's not just as of the close date, you're done. I actually am working with a client right now that sold as of November 1, and there's just as much work as there was right before the sale. So there's a lot to be done around there, and so we can help with bandwidth in that transitional period. And we have experts that are familiar with M&A, with audits, that can come in and hit the ground running. And then there's also seasonal work as well, where some businesses are just busier at certain times of year and need that extra bandwidth and don't want to hire a full-time employee and commit to that extra headcount on their team. And again, if we can flex, a lot of times we have people tell us they think they need someone full-time for the next 6 weeks, but depending on what they need done, sometimes we don't need 8 hours a day to complete the work that they're asking us to do. I think when you have employees in-house, sometimes they will fill those 8 hours, but if we have specific tasks that we are trying to get done, a lot of times we're like, I only needed to do 5 hours today. That's all you're paying for. So hopefully that helps a little bit on the types of companies that we work with.
Yeah, and to go a little more into what our team typically looks like, we have consultants ranging from CFO level down to staff accounting level. And these are the 3 general buckets that they typically fall within. Obviously the CFOs are more strategic focused. They're taking the financials and looking to the future with the accounting. The controller support is where a lot of our clients end up needing us the most traditionally, but that's more the analysis of the financials that the staff accountants are putting together. So the staff accountant is more execution, the day-to-day data entry type work. And we have a couple levels in between, such as like a senior accountant, accounting manager. We have a technical controller who kind of flexes up and down between CFO and controller. So it really just depends on what your needs are at the moment, and that might change. Sometimes clients will bring us in and we'll start off with a controller potentially, and then, you know, as things start getting a little bit more in a routine maintenance, we're getting better SOPs in place and things are looking a little bit better. Maybe you don't need as much of a controller time and you just need people to do the execution portion. So we always give our clients a recommendation in terms of how much support you're needing from different levels. Maybe you just need one level at the moment. It's one controller or one CFO, and that's all you're using. And then sometimes we go the team approach route with it. Maybe you need a little bit of the CFO's time, or you just need a CFO to call as things pop up, and a majority of the time you're needing more of a staff accounting option. So in our initial assessment, we'll give you those recommendations. We'll kind of break it down by project in terms of, okay, here's, you know, priority number 1, 2, and 3, and here's the level that you would need for each of those projects. It can either be one person or a couple people who kind of tag team on items, but it's all up to our client's preference in the end, whether they you know, want to tackle all of the items at once or one at a time. But these are the levels that we have on our team. Everybody's full-time with the company, so you'll have the same person through the entirety of your engagement with us. And we're not going to be switching up consultants constantly on you. You'll get the same dedicated person for the entirety of the engagement.
Hey, Rachel, we got a question. If you're a small business and, you know, maybe you don't have a finance team yet, you know, it's a family business and you're looking to bring somebody on fractionally, you know, how would you make the decision on which of these buckets makes sense?
I think it would depend a lot on what needed executed. You know, if typically in a small business, I don't think people necessarily need a full-blown CFO right off the bat. I think it can generally be mainly somebody who's at the staff level to get the financials entered, get the AR and AP taken care of, make sure payroll's being taken care of, and then maybe have a little bit of a controller's time to oversee that and do the analysis on those financials. That's probably a good place to start. And maybe the staff accounts in-house, but the controller's outsourced. That's typically what it ends up looking like, but it varies. It's kind of different for each business. But Christy, do you have anything to add to that specific question?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point, and it really does vary from situation to situation. But if you have no accounting staff at all, I'd highly recommend at least that staff accountant level, right? We all need a function. We need to pay our bills. We need to collect from our clients or customers. And then oftentimes we'll have a controller oversight. So as an example, I have a client that we have someone on our team that handles the books, probably 5 hours a week of just handling day to day. And then I meet with the client monthly for a couple hours to review the financials. I've reviewed them before the meeting. We talk about a little bit of strategy as well around like how are sales going, what's changing, what can be done to, you know, improve the business profitability. So there we can definitely kind of match up what needs the client has.
Cool. Yeah, because I know some people, they'll wait until tax time and then they pay their CPA to like clean their books up, and probably would be better and cheaper to just have somebody, you know, on a part-time basis keeping it up to date throughout the year.
Absolutely. I will say too, it's amazing to me how many companies file at the very last minute and are cleaning up their books to the very last minute. And I'm talking in August to get ready for September, you know, after they filed an extension. And I understand a lot of businesses, it's not possible to file on time, you know, in March or April, but the ability to file like May, June, July is still there. And so it's very common that we see people, companies filing for extensions just because they haven't had time for that cleanup. But really now is the time to be prepared. You're going to find your CPAs will charge you a lot less in the future if you're not that person on August 31st being like, here's my books, get everything ready for my taxes.
Cool.
So I wanted to walk through a couple of sample success stories for you, because there are so many things. I mean, the way I kind of put it is that if there's anything that falls under accounting finance, it's something that we can help with, except we don't do taxes and we don't do audit. So you still have your CPA firm that will handle all those things for you. But I wanted to talk about a manufacturing client that we have. that has a ERP they're using. They've been using forever. They're not fully using it to capacity. They are doing a lot of things outside of the system that should be done within the system, especially for internal controls. Examples being bank reconciliations are being done in Excel, not within the accounting software. They are doing their inventories a little bit of a disaster within the accounting software. They are not doing fixed assets through that. And the accounting software that they're paying for has all the ability to do this, right? And so things are taking a lot longer because it's manual, pulling data out, reconciling it, doing entries based off of that. So the other issue was that their current controller is looking to retire. And so their thought at this point was, let's get everything cleaned up. Let's have someone come in and get everything cleaned up and ready to go for the new controller we hire as this one retires, so that they're not coming into a bunch of project work. There's always projects, right? But they can focus on some other things we need done, and let's get our ERP working properly. And we found when we were in there, I mean, some of these things, it was just that no one on the team had really had experience with this ERP. So we brought in people that have extensive experience with the ERP. It happened to be Dynamics. And got them set up so that they can get their bank recs done in Dynamics. A lot of times that can be daunting because it's like, where do you start? So we help kind of develop a project plan and get them their bank recs set up. We're working on their fixed assets implementation. We created SOPs on how to use that in the future, because part of the reason they weren't using those modules is because they just didn't have any detailed SOPs around it, so that as you have turnover in your staff, that someone else can come in and take over, right? There's just the knowledge leaves with the person who leaves the group. So those SOPs are pretty big with a lot of clients. And so this allowed them, I will tell you, on the bank rec, it was interesting because when we first went in, we found that their Excel reconciliation actually didn't tie to the GL and the ERP. So although they thought they were reconciled, if you have an error in Excel or you just want to plug something in and hard code it, it looks reconciled, but it was not. And so it really helped to strengthen the internal controls to get all that in the system. It helped to reduce the manpower required to do that monthly close and to have some more confidence around the numbers, and also helps with those annual audits. They do get audited annually to make sure that you can quickly get work papers out for things like fixed assets, rather than keeping all of that in a spreadsheet in Excel.
Very good.
And then I wanted to talk an example of a smaller client, a nonprofit that we worked with, where it was, a slim staff, as we find sometimes with nonprofits. They're trying to stay within a reasonable budget, and the CFO was the COO as well, and so operating this nonprofit, and just did not have time for the day-to-day accounting, and so they ended up being 2 years behind on their annual audit. By the time we were talking to them, the second one should have been starting, the first one wasn't completed. So we are able to, again, we have experts that have done, audits year after year, several audits a year since they have clients, and have been in-house and been on the audit team. And so we're not coming in to ask a million questions to the client. If you get access to certain things, we can typically come in and start from where you were at, build your work papers, get the PBC done that the auditors need, be that interface between them and the auditors, and just have questions as they become specific to your business. That may be something, obviously we're gonna make sure that you're good with the work papers and everything we're providing, but getting rid of a lot of that legwork and really knowing what auditors are looking for when they're asking for things on their PBC. So we were able to help get this client caught up by bringing in a consultant that was really familiar with nonprofits and audits within nonprofits.
Okay, so signs that it might be a good fit. This is, I think, a really good bulleted list that we have put together here. Increasing capacity without adding headcount. a lot of times when we get brought into clients, they already have a really good internal team in place. It's not like we're being brought into, you know, replace any internal team members or train. Sometimes people bring us in to train, but a lot of times they have a really good thing moving. They just need extra hands on deck for some of their internal team members. They're working insane hours. They don't have time to get to everything, and things are going to slip in that case. So sometimes it's just extra capacity. If you need to backfill a position, a lot of times, we've had a lot of times this year where a CFO or controller left with little to no notice, and it's taking a long time right now to find good resources to backfill those positions. So sometimes we will just be brought in to kind of plug and play until they do find somebody. Or maybe they're like, hey, I don't even know if this person was actually doing 40 hours worth of work a week. Can you guys come in, do an assessment, see if we have the right level of person in place? Maybe we don't need somebody as technical, or maybe we need somebody more technical, and kind of just doing a little assessment while you guys are doing a search on the outside. And then year-end projects, there's projects all throughout the year in accounting, but a lot more at year-end. So, you know, your internal team is probably either really, you know, involved in the day-to-day, their normal daily work that they're doing, plus all of the year-end projects and year-end close and prepping for that. If you guys have an audit that's coming up in the spring, they're kind of starting to prep for that with a lot of the CPA firms. So there's just a lot to do, and sometimes it really stretches your internal team thin. So if it's just needing a little bit of extra support during this specific time, and then once it's done, you don't need us anymore, that's totally fine. It's like we said before, it's really flexible. And then planning to go through, obviously, a technology implementation, whether it's an ERP system, you're looking at other like a CRM or an inventory system that you're implementing, whatever it might be. There's usually just, it goes a lot smoother with some extra support and extra hands in there. And like we were talking earlier too, whoever asked the question about the small business, small family business, you know, a lot of times as an owner, you have to really be in the weeds. You kind of have to roll up your sleeves and do everything yourself in the beginning. But at a certain point, there's going to be a time where you have to kind of decipher where's your time most valuable. Is it in the accounting, or is it time to kind of start looking into getting some extra support in there to do the accounting, and you go sell or work on operations or whatever it is that you're good at, and your time is going to be more valuable. So I think all of these are good examples of when to look into it.
All right. So I do see we do have a couple questions that came up. The first one was, you know, how much does this cost?
So the rates are hourly, and they vary based on the level of services needed. We tend to see ranges from around $100 up to $300, depending on the consultant and the expertise needed and that level. So CFO is obviously more than a staff accountant. Again, we have a lot of times that we meet with people, and they come into the meeting saying, I need a CFO. And as we're talking to them, we're like, actually, you kind of just need a controller. We will have those conversations. That's what that slide was about, around what types of work each category does. And so we can find ways to be creative. This is where maybe they come in thinking they need one person, but we can do a team approach where we can have someone at that lower level handling some of the day-to-day, and then the more strategic person on call and as needed or monthly.
Okay. And then there was another, yeah, how fast can you get started on something like this?
We are able to move pretty quickly. Obviously, we'll have our initial like whiteboarding session to get a better feel for where the needs are actually at and what's prioritized. So once we have an idea of that, we'll be able to kind of tell what levels we're going to be needing for the engagement. It usually we can get somebody placed within a day at the quickest, but usually I would say on average it's 2 or 3 days for us to look through our production schedule and see who we have available, and make sure that they have the right background that our prospect or client is looking for. But it's a pretty quick turnaround. If it's something very, very specific, maybe a little bit longer, but oftentimes we're able to kind of piece a team together that kind of fills in each other's gaps as well, if there's ever like a unicorn that we're looking for. But yeah, usually I would say like 2 days turnaround.
Cool. And then there's another one, and it's very similar to what I hear doing ERP stuff, but I always kind of chuckle. Our processes are really complicated. Like, how are you gonna like step in and backfill on this? You don't know them.
We, yes, everybody's processes are complicated. Sometimes we have people who are like, we're really simple. And those tend to be not the ones that are simple. So, look, I mean, our consultants are typically have 3 to 5 clients at any one time, and those are changing throughout the year. So as you can imagine, it's almost like starting a new job every, every couple of weeks and having to get up to speed quickly. They are experts at this. A lot of what we do is reverse engineering. I have a client that does very complex distributions to a big partner group, and they're all very different. And I took the spreadsheet that was done for the previous quarter, and I can reverse engineer it. I may rebuild it, but there are things that we can figure out just having access to information, right? I had a client the other day, a new client that I was trying to figure out, well, do they job cost or payroll? I didn't have to ask them. I have access to their software. I can go in and look at that and run job costing reports and make sure, because surprisingly enough, there are companies that do job costing and leave payroll out of it. So we will have questions. Typically what we want to do is get access. We will tell you what we need access to then look at your books and then come back to you with questions, because we can probably answer a good 75% of questions, even if you think your processes are complex. Trust me, we've probably seen something similar, and we know what types of questions to ask around those different pieces of accounting.
Seen it all.
We've seen some crazy stuff. So, but I mean, that's part of what we do too, is as we're looking at those things, we're not just there to replicate everything. We're there to help make things more efficient too. I mean, that's what our team's doing. We're not just temp labor coming in to fill a spot and get something done. While we're doing it, we're going to say, have we thought about doing it this way? And there may be perfectly good reasons, or they have tried it that way, and there's reasons not to. But if there's some way to improve things and we can improve them as we're working on them, we will, right? With the client's permission, of course.
Definitely.
So I know, one of the things that we like to do as a free offering to anyone who's interested or thinks that this may be something that could be interesting for them and want more information is a 30-minute whiteboard session. Sometimes they go to 45 minutes, depending on how much the prospect has to talk about. But this is an actual example of a whiteboard. We redacted some information on here, really going through the business. And typically what we find is that people come to that meeting with, I have specific things I want or need and that I need done. But we have seen it all. Again, honestly, we've seen it all. So we typically have questions on top of that sometimes bring out additional issues and things that could be improved upon, or maybe what the real issue is behind these other issues. Or, it may be, we have times that people come in and it really is just a singular issue. I need this done. For instance, the audits, right? I just need my audits caught up. I don't need anything else right now. And that's totally fine too. But these, the whiteboards are completely free. They allow you a chance to kind of interface with us and kind of hear some of the things we've seen or questions that we have. And it's kind of like a really cool strategic planning meeting. And whether or not you decide to move forward and use fractional services, we give you a copy of the whiteboard at the end. It's something you can take with you from a company perspective to use as a roadmap and a way to think about the future. We've had people that we've done whiteboards with too, that maybe they changed their mind and they don't think they need help right now, or something changed. And then they'll call us. We had someone call us the other day from January 2nd that we had met with that reached back out to us. So we're always available too. If you do one of these and you're like, maybe not right now, but maybe in April, we probably need a little additional help. It's definitely a great exercise if you can take 30 to 45 minutes out of your day just to really think through your accounting department, your finance, and are there any areas that could be improved upon, or that your team could use some extra support. And there's no commitment that's set down at the bottom. But yes, you get to take it and run.
Awesome. Well, thanks. And if you want to take advantage of that offer, you can scan the QR code on the screen, or you can just email marketing@brainsell.com with your availability, and we'll get something scheduled so you can take part. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.